Hello and welcome to the Author Webinar Series, brought to you by the Nonfiction Authors Association and Writers Conference. Since 2010, we have helped thousands of writers learn to write, publish, and promote books that make a difference in the world. If you are seeking guidance for your own author journey and want to reach your goals faster, you can learn about membership benefits, courses, and additional resources by visiting nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. We look forward to connecting with you and hope you enjoy this webinar.
Hey everyone, welcome to another free webinar from the Nonfiction Authors Association and Writers Conference. I am Stephanie Chandler. I'm CEO of the association. I'm also a fellow writer of 11 books, both traditionally published and self-published. I'm a former bookstore owner. I'm former Silicon Valley soul-sucking career. So my point here is that I have walked in your shoes. I started exactly where maybe you're starting. I had no celebrity friends. I wasn't on a reality show. I had to build my career from step one, and my goal is to help you do exactly the same. So let's get to it. Lots and lots of content to cover today. So number one, and I just cannot emphasize this enough, I think the biggest mistake I see authors make is not being really clear about the target audience. Your target audience is never everyone. It should be ideally a niche audience that has interests, needs, and challenges that you can address and serve them in some way. The goal really is to carve out a seat at the table in the genre where you are writing your books. So let's go through some examples. This is Liz Abbas. She is currently finishing work on a memoir about her brother's addiction. And she is turning that into a business, teaching people how to love an addict and how to deal with codependency. And she's doing this with a website and an email newsletter where she responds to readers' questions. And because she started building her platform, she's already working with the publisher who's agreed to take on her book. And by the way, they asked her to turn her memoir into a prescriptive memoir. So for those of you writing memoir, that is fairly trendy at the moment. And a prescriptive memoir can simply mean you've got some maybe lessons learned at the end of each chapter or some actions for the reader to take. KevinMD.com is a really interesting site where this physician has created a landing area for his readers to learn how to manage their physician businesses online. He teaches them how to leverage social media, and it appears to be a really thriving community that he's using to attract his target audience of fellow physicians. For those of you writing memoir, you are included in all of this. This is Donna Hartley. She survived the plane crash you see on your screen. She also survived a collapsed heart valve and stage 3 cancer. She's definitely a survivor. So she's written 3 memoirs, and she makes her living as a keynote speaker. And she's carved out a niche talking about women's health and women's heart health, and she's paid to give those types of presentations through organizations like the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women. This is Jenny Levine Fink. She learned she had a gluten allergy and created a website to help others navigate gluten-free living. She started with an email list sharing recipes and tips and tricks. And after several years of building her community, imagine what happens when her book comes out. She has a loyal, engaged audience, and her book has sold quite well ever since then. Patrick Schwartfeger, a keynote speaker full-time, and he talks about data trends and cryptocurrency, and he has built his business around tip videos through YouTube and on his website, clips of him speaking. These videos help him get found by the people who contact him as a speaker, and his books are also a tool for him to get speaking gigs. And the year prior to the pandemic, he earned just around $500,000 in speaking fees alone. Amazing, right? This is Roxane Gay. I'm a huge fan of her as a writer. She's a courageous writer who has several New York Times best-selling books. She markets through writing. She's a journalist. She writes for a variety of publications. She writes opinion pieces. Just a really focused career, primarily on women's issues and body issues. And side note, she's also speaking at our Nonfiction Writers Conference this year. And then Dan Harris's book, 10% Happier. I loved this, but Dan Harris was a journalist on Good Morning America. He actually had an on-air panic attack. And the book is his memoir about learning to navigate anxiety. And he launched a podcast as a result of that, built a huge following. And then he launched a paid meditation app. He left that app with his partners last year. However, he was able to kind of turn this book into another thriving business and a pretty incredible side hustle after also being a journalist. And then I don't know if any of you are doing keto. I'm not, but I love the recipes on Melissa's site called IBreatheI'mHungry.com. She just writes great recipes. The concept here is you get lots and lots of free recipes, and there's no catch. You can download them for free, but it makes you want to subscribe to get more of her recipes. And of course, imagine when her books come out, she has another loyal following of people who enjoy her content. Joseph Alexander started out writing guitar instruction books and posting videos on YouTube. And then he started bringing in others to write different types of instrument guides, learning guides. And I reached out to him a couple years ago to ask him if we could interview him. I'd heard he'd been doing really well with his six-figure book sales. And he said, I'd love to do an interview with you, but we're doing 7 figures a year in book sales. Own your niche. So, what do all these folks have in common? They have carved out a niche and they are leveraging content to reach a target audience. This is the formula. It really is this simple. So, let's talk about how you do that. On your website, I really encourage you to have at least one piece of what I call foundational content. And this can be either a blog, a podcast, or a video. So blog, podcast, or video means that you have traffic coming to your site to follow your content. And you're posting either written posts, podcast episodes, or video episodes. You might even have a combination of the three. But the point is that you're producing useful content for your audience that serves their interests, needs, and challenges and gives them a reason to visit your website. Now, with that, you want to also leverage other content strategies, sharing on social media, speaking at events, maybe contributing to blogs or writing for other publications. But really, the core should be built on your website. And we just want to remember we're creating content for a specific target audience. This is how we build the following. Now, with that said, I really believe email is the best digital asset you can have along with your website. If I had to choose between social media and email marketing, I will take email marketing all day long for a whole bunch of reasons. It's an asset that no one can take away from you. You know, if you're putting all of your energy onto Instagram or Twitter, that is rented real estate. You don't own your presence there. You don't own your following there. They can shut it down. TikTok may or may not be going away, and those people will lose their entire followings overnight. So email gives you an asset that you keep. It's also a much more engaged way to connect with people. I would venture to guess that most of you are here today because of our email list, right? With your email list, you want to give people incentive to sign up. I see a lot of authors say, you know, sign up for my newsletter. That is an incentive, and we all have very busy inboxes. So you want to give them a reason to join. It might be the first 2 chapters of your book. It might be recipes. It might be a video training series. It might be some quick tip sheets or checklists or a report or worksheets. Whatever it is, the content should be focused on serving the interests, needs, and challenges of your target audience. Here's an example from Jenny Levine Fink's site, Good For You Gluten Free. Sign up, join our 24,000 members. She has 24,000 subscribers and get the free articles and recipes and things like that. dailyom.com. I bet some of you are familiar with this site. Started out as just daily, really thoughtful, holistic, or spiritual tips. You see one here on your screen. And this site grew dramatically. I think they have over 1 million subscribers now, and they sell courses. So that led to selling all kinds of courses. And their model is so interesting because they allow you to pay what you want for these. They're kind of mini courses and they're self-study. They're not massive multi-week courses, but they're mini courses, and you can pay $22, $33, or $44. You get to choose. I think it's a brilliant model. And when you're reaching 1 million people every day, you're making those sales in volume for sure. I'm a huge fan of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. This is a great read if you haven't read it. Well, he started out with an email list. And if you want a great example of how to do email well, sign up for his email at jamesclear.com. He has over 1 million subscribers, and they're quick tips on habits and how to live your life better. So he really owns the topic of habits. And imagine what happens when his book comes out and he's got 1 million subscribers. That book just rocketed to the bestseller list and has stayed there and sold in other languages. And it also helps that it's a really good, recommendable book. But building that following really helps achieve success. This is the simplicity of his email. Another lead magnet I love, if you can think of something that would work for you as a quiz. Quizzes are fun, right? I get sucked into those personality quizzes and find out how extroverted you are or introverted you are, or what's your personality type, what's your love language, all those quizzes. This is an example. Sally Hogshead has had this Fascinate system quiz for a really long time. I've seen her speak. She does a free version of it with a live audience, and then you can do a paid version off her website, and she sells that to corporations. But this has to have helped her grow her email list dramatically. And then Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, she has a book called Sacred Rest. It's about the types of rest we need: emotional rest, creative rest, physical rest. She put herself on a publicity tour doing podcast interviews and radio interviews. And instead of saying, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, she said, hey, take my free quiz over at restquiz.com. Just a brilliant strategy. And the result is that she's had over 200,000 people take the quiz, and they have to input their email address to get the results. It's free. It's brilliant. So think about the types of incentives that you can create to grow your email list. And here's a power tip for you. Make sure you're inviting people, your readers, within your book. Offer them bonus content. I'm seeing more and more of this in books, and I love it. As a reader, I love bonuses. And as an author, there's no other way for us to connect with our readers. We're not given sales data from Amazon. So in order to connect with your readers, you want to give them something that inspires them to give you their email address. So some sort of reader bonus, download printable worksheets, download a bonus chapter, things like that can really inspire your readers to share their information with you. All right, another strategy that for building your marketing plan that I really love is working with beta readers. Beta readers are people that you give early access to your manuscript. And we do that for several reasons. You may want to get reader feedback before you actually proceed to publish. Maybe you want to know that it flows well, that it makes sense. Maybe you're looking for editorial feedback. Maybe you want people to correct your grammar, punctuation, and spelling, or maybe you want really detailed feedback. Another reason to work with beta readers is these can be your earliest book reviewers on Amazon and Goodreads and other sites. And also, one of my favorite reasons to work with beta readers is that word of mouth. So they get early access, which means when your book comes out, they're the ones that can really help you start spreading the word about the book right out of the gate. So that's My personal reason that I like working with beta readers is they help with the marketing support, and it's also really rewarding to get feedback and support from your readers. I was really surprised how much I enjoyed that process when I worked with beta readers. They can help you by posting those reviews on Amazon. Maybe they have a blog where they can post about your book. They can certainly share on social media. Maybe they have their own email list. We want to make it really easy for them to help spread the word once the book comes out by giving them some maybe pre-designed social media images, some pre-written tweets and things like that. Now, how many beta readers do you need? My philosophy is get as many as you can. So when I did this with my nonfiction book publishing plan, my goal was to get 100 beta readers. I put out a call to our email list and got 401 applications. I created an application and I accepted 400 of them. There only one looked like a spammer. 400 beta readers, which was so fun. And it was a great way to just build this community before the book came out. Now, you may feel uncomfortable or you may not even be able to get that many. Maybe you want 10 beta readers. Whatever your number is, it's fine. My feeling is the more eyeballs on a manuscript, the better. So personally, I like to make it available to as many as possible. But if you have a bunch of beta readers, you want to organize it in some way, you certainly are going to send them emails, keep them updated on the process. You're going to share your manuscript with them, either using a tool like a book funnel or a Dropbox or a Google document. But you want to stay connected with them. And if you're asking for editorial feedback, you want to be really specific about what it is you're looking for. Are you asking them to evaluate each chapter and write a summary of their thoughts? Are you asking them to make editorial corrections? Now, I will say, if you want editorial feedback, 400 people would be way too many cooks in the kitchen. So that's not why I worked with beta readers. I was more looking for my support team. So if you're seeking editorial feedback, you might want to do 10 or 20 or 30 at the most, because that's just a lot of content to wade through when it's done. And I'll also say editorial feedback is subjective, right? What one person likes, another may dislike. You don't have to please everyone. Let me write you a permission slip. But if you see a theme, multiple people not liking a part of the book, that's a sign that maybe you should pay attention to. But we want to appreciate them, show them gratitude. They are our support team as the book is coming out. Now, if you're nervous about sharing your manuscript, and I hear this a lot, I'd like to share with you one of my favorite quotes from Seth Godin, marketing extraordinaire. Your problem isn't piracy. Your problem is obscurity. The philosophy here is that we want to get our manuscripts in the hands of as many readers as possible. Readers tell other readers when they like a book. And yes, can your manuscript get passed around and shared? It absolutely can. Can it get pirated? Possibly, but not super likely, especially if you're building your beta readers from a community of people maybe that you already know or you're connected with in some way. So I just want to encourage you. We want to put a copyright statement on our work, register it at copyright.gov for $30. That's a worthy investment. But don't be afraid to share. And in fact, when I shared my manuscript with my beta readers, I shared a PDF version of it. And I put right at the footer of the document, feel free to share this with another writer who would enjoy this. And I wanted my readers to share it because I wanted more eyeballs. I don't view that as lost sales. I view that as people are going to go tell others about it if they liked it. And what also happened with the beta readers is many of them ended up buying the book anyway. They didn't have to. Some of them might be here on this call today. They didn't have to do that. So it was a very heartwarming experience. And I encourage you to enlist some beta readers, even if it's just a handful of people. Now, also with your marketing, Amazon is so important. Like it or not, I will say, as an author and a publisher, most of us have a love-hate relationship with this company. But the fact is, we believe somewhere around 70% of all books are being sold on Amazon. So it's really important that we optimize for sales on this platform. Categories are hugely important to your book's success. because we want to be seen in a category. This is where people discover books. And it is really fun to see your book at the top of a category, especially when you're launching the book. Capture those screenshots. But here's the thing. I don't think a day goes by when I don't get asked about Amazon bestseller campaigns. So the goal with these, if you're not totally familiar, is to reach the top of an Amazon category, reach #1, and call your book an Amazon bestseller. I have some strong feelings about this. I think that this has eroded the bestseller term. This used to mean New York Times bestseller. And Amazon bestsellers can happen with as few as 5 sales in a small category. So it's not the big accomplishment that people make it out to be. And it really doesn't have long-term value other than calling yourself a best-selling author. And those of us in the publishing industry know that doesn't mean a whole lot. So let me give you another reality here. So this is a great video to watch on YouTube. This guy, Mike, got his Amazon bestseller status with a blank book. Yes, it is true. And this happens all the time. So here's our goal. Stay in the top 10 of your category for the long term, not for an hour, not for a day. We're going to build in the marketing strategies that help your book continue to sell for the long term. This is the goal, getting discovered in your category. This example you see here is Mark Paul. This is a 5-year-old book and a screenshot I took a week ago, and it hovers in the top 10 for all 4 editions of the book in the horse racing category. In a moment, I'm going to tell you how he's making that happen. But benefits of being in the top of a category is visibility for people browsing that topic for books. Also, while you're in the #1 spot, your book shows the #1 bestseller tag. That goes away when it falls out of #1. So again, no long-term value to be there for a hot minute, but great value to be there on a long-term basis. So let me tell you how Mark did this. This is Mark Paul. He's the author of The Greatest Gambling Story Ever Told. It is about betting on a filly to win the Kentucky Derby. This was back in the 80s. It was a long shot bet. He and a buddy placed a big bet and she ends up winning. And they have to go collect their prize from the Mexican drug cartel. They hadn't realized that's where their bet had been placed. So Mark has no platform, has 0 interest in social media, and he wants to go all in on Amazon ads. And that is what he did. So he focused on categories, figuring out the right categories for his book. And to date, he has sold almost 60,000 copies of this book. It's a self-published memoir. It has also been optioned for film. So I asked him to share, what is your strategy? Produce a great book. This is key. A mediocre book doesn't get people to tell others about it. I mean, I've been talking about Atomic Habits since I read it 2 years ago. Is that good? So write a book that people want to recommend. And if you're not sure your book is there yet, this is why we hire editors. I'm not an editor. I love editors. I think I'm a decent writer, but all of my manuscripts go through at least 4 rounds of editing. I want them to be as perfect as possible. So make it a great book. And then choose the right categories for your book. Your book can be listed in 3 categories for each edition. The paperback can be in 3 categories, the Kindle edition, the audiobook edition, the hardcover. All 4 can be in different Amazon categories. And then for Amazon ads, we use keywords, and he's got hundreds of keywords that he's targeting. And by keywords, we're thinking like people who are looking for books about horse racing, books about gambling, books for horse lovers. All these people are interested in his topics. And then also keywords can be similar books like Seabiscuit and the similar authors. So when people search for the similar author or the similar book, they're also seeing Mark's book. And he invests heavily in his Amazon ads to make that happen. So for you want to conduct your category research for your book, and you're going to search for other books in your genre is the first place to start. Look and see what categories they're listed in and start building a list. And then you're going to choose your 3 categories for each. Now, let me point out niche categories. It's much easier to get visibility and get to the top of a small category like baby and toddler parenting than it is a big category like general memoirs. That's a big category. So look for these smaller categories where your book can potentially rise to the top. Additional things to do in Amazon. Keyword rich book description. So talking about what are people searching? Is it a memoir about addiction? Is it a book about how to grow a tech company business? Whatever it is, get those keyword phrases in there that your target readers are searching for. Because once you publish your book on Amazon, you can claim it in Author Central, as you should. This is a free tool from Amazon, and you can go update the content on your book's page. So you can expand the description, you can write a note from the author, you add your author bio there. Author Central is a great tool. And then we really want to be driving our sales to Amazon, that it's part of their algorithms. If your book is selling, Amazon will keep promoting it to the right readers. So if it's sitting there and not selling, it is falling down the Amazon well, if you will. There are millions and millions of titles on Amazon. This is why we need to maximize our marketing efforts. And we're all nonfiction writers here. If you're not, most of this applies to you as well. But for nonfiction in particular, I have seen Amazon ads, pay-per-click ads, work really well. So if your ads are well optimized, they're targeting the right readers, you've written a great book that has reviews, and you're converting those visitors into buyers, those ads can be really successful. Just give them time. A lot of people quit too soon. Give them 60 to 90 days and tune those ads. And then Amazon book reviews are very important for a whole bunch of reasons. They influence buyers. They help them decide to buy a book, right? I always look at Amazon product reviews when I'm buying a book or any other product, but they also tell Amazon your book is popular. So reviews are important. They're also hard to get. I think we're all busy. We have good intentions. I'll tell you, I'll write a review and then I forget about it, and that's going to happen. Your beta readers, if you have 100 beta readers, you'll be lucky if 20 of them take the time to write reviews. That's a good percentage because we're just busy. So get in the habit of asking people for reviews. If you get an email from a reader, which is one of the highlights of being an author, right, is when a reader sends you feedback, reply, "Thank you so much. Could you please take a moment to write a review on Amazon? It really helps me out." So get in the habit of asking for those reviews. All right. Moving on from Amazon, we could talk about Amazon for the next 7 hours. But moving on from that, I have some good news for you, especially if you're just getting started. And even if you've been around for a while, you may already have a larger audience than you realize. So if you look at what I call your circle of influence, these are the people that you know. So this could be coworkers, people you worked with 25 years ago, like I did in the Silicon Valley, your past readers, your email subscribers, your peers, people that you're friends with in your genre or in your industry. It could be people that you coached the Little League with, if 20 years ago. They will be impressed that you have authored a book. It is a big deal. There's some statistics that say 80% of people would love to write a book, but how many of us actually do it? Very few. So point here is to look at the people that you know and connect with them and see how they can help you promote your book. So you'll have these slides, by the way. I will share them with the recording after the event today. You could snap a picture if you want, but I will be sharing the slides. But reach out to the people that you know. And this is an exercise I do every time I launch a book. I sit down, I spend an afternoon, I go through my emails, I look through my contacts. We forget who we know. And I want to be able to connect with my peers and the people who I know will be interested in helping support the book. And then we're going to ask them for their support. We're going to say, "Hey, can you bring me in as a guest on your podcast? Can you bring me in to speak? Can you buy 100 copies and give them to the staff at your office?" Maybe it's as simple as asking them to write a review on Amazon. So when I do this exercise myself, I create a spreadsheet with the people's names and a column I call Ask. What is it I'm asking them to do? Maybe it's a book giveaway. Maybe it's publishing an excerpt on their blog. Maybe I'm sharing the social media images and just asking them to promote it. So you have a column called Ask, and you want to think about who do you know that can help you promote your book. All right, I'm going to bring this home and take your questions. So if you have questions, please pop them in the Q&A. It gets buried in chat. Please put them in Q&A. I am going to stay and answer all your questions. Another, I think, really important strategy is to share review copies of your book. You're sharing them with fellow influencers in your field. If you're trying to get on a podcast or get an interview at your local TV station, certainly anybody mentioned in the book, trade associations, where is your target audience spending time and who influences them? Sending out copies can help you reach more people, because in return, the people who receive the copies will potentially promote you, invite you on their podcasts. Maybe you're trying to target college professors because you want your book to be used in college courses. This is one fantastic way to do this. And podcast tours, such an underutilized opportunity for writers. I hear constantly from podcast hosts that they need guests, especially the smaller and the mid-sized podcasts. The top podcasts, the Brene Browns of the world, they're not hurting for guests, but everyone else is seeking guests that have interesting content for their audience. And there are endless podcasts covering all kinds of niche topics: parenting, religion, politics, business, life stories, addiction, mental health, you name it. There are podcasts that are talking about it and that want to interview you to share what you know. So it's not about your book, it's about the value you bring to the audience. And I love podcasts because we can do these from the comfort of our home offices. You don't have to go anywhere. Generally, they have you on for longer periods of time. So if you do a traditional radio interview, and in California, I have to do those drive time radio shows at 6 a.m. in New York is 3 a.m. in California, and I'm lucky to be on for 6 minutes. But with a podcast, you might be interviewed for 15, 30, or even 60 minutes, and the episode is promoted to the following. Before the event, it stays online for all eternity. So podcasts are fantastic. Also, you can quote me on this: speakers sell books. If you're interested in speaking, it is a great way for you to go connect with audiences and sell more books. There are endless opportunities to speak, even in your own backyard. I live near Sacramento. It's the state capital of California. We've got tons of government here. We have endless trade associations. And guess what? Those associations have meetings. Most of them have a monthly meeting and need speakers to come and speak to them. They also have big annual conferences where you can apply to be a speaker. And depending on your target audience, you might be speaking at schools, you might be speaking at the Rotary Club or Kiwanis or a service organization. And you might also be doing online events, which I especially love to do. We're doing one right now, right? So speaking online, you can give webinars for other associations, or you can host your own, like I'm doing right now. This is one of my favorite things I do. I hope that comes through. So you could be doing something very similar. It's also a great way that we grow the email list, because we do these events for free. In exchange, you registered with your email address and you will get the recording and the bonus material and the slides, and hopefully find a lot of value in the time you spent with me today. So you could be doing the same for your target audience. And I can't emphasize this enough. It all comes back to your target audience. If you can carve out a niche for yourself and figure out what are their interests, needs, and challenges, and how can you serve them, this is the key to creating a successful online platform. And I'll tell you, back in 2010, I launched the first Nonfiction Writers Conference. It was a 3-day online event. And mind you, this was 15 years ago. People weren't doing online multi-day events back then, and we didn't even have Zoom. We were doing this by teleconference. So the attendees of the live conference were dialing into a conference line and listening to the conference speakers. I will admit, it was kind of a wacky idea, but it worked. because nobody else was doing it and nobody was speaking to my target audience of nonfiction writers. That was born for me from speaking at writers' conferences and looking around going, why aren't you talking to me? It's very fiction centric. And those of us writing nonfiction tend to have different goals and priorities. And so I saw a need that for nonfiction community and filled it. What is the need you see for your target audience, and how can you fill it? One thing I recommend, if you have a budget, hire an assistant to help you, especially with the tasks that you're either not enjoying doing or you're procrastinating about. I will tell you, I can't imagine there's any top selling author who doesn't use the services of a virtual assistant. Virtual assistants are administrative professionals that you can hire on a contract basis. They typically work from their own homes, and they can be based in any country in the world, really. And they can help you. They can help you with managing your blog, putting your social media posts out, editing your videos, putting your newsletter together. And from $20 to $40 or $50 an hour and up, if you budget a couple $100 a month and have someone help you with all those tasks, it frees you up to do the things that you do well. And if you don't have a budget for this, you might look to your local colleges, see if you can bring in an intern. Depending on where you live in California, we do have to pay interns, but depending on where you live, you might be able to work out a trade of some sort. But really, I'm such a fan of the virtual assistant community. This is absolutely how I have grown my own business over the years. It was bringing in the help I need to free me up to do the things that I do best. And then I like to bring this home by saying you may have some resistance to marketing. Many writers do. Maybe you just want to focus on writing the book and that's it. I get it. I used to be someone who absolutely dreaded gardening. And I think it's a very similar comparison, right? So I dreaded gardening. I didn't like the dirt and the bugs and the sun and the heat. I live in Sacramento. It's really hot here in the summer, but I do it every year because I like the end result. I like having a beautiful yard. I spend a lot of time in my yard. I like for it to be beautiful. And so I commit to gardening every year. Actually, what has happened over time is I've started to really love the gardening. I never expected that to happen. So imagine if you were to go out in your garden every day and plant and water 3 seeds. Over time, you would have a beautiful garden. Your marketing works much the same way. If you can do 3 things a day, plant 3 seeds, go write a blog post, go pitch a podcast, put some posts out on social media, create a lead magnet for your email list. If you can do 3 tasks a day, under 30 minutes a day, over time that will grow. And you might even find out that you enjoy it too. All right, I want to take your questions. Please put them in the Q&A. I'm going to stay and take all the questions today. Before I do, please indulge me. I want to just quickly share with you that we have a book marketing masterclass starting next week. So I'm leading this class. I think this is our 4th or 5th year of the book marketing master course. It is a 6-week course. It is so much fun. If you got value from what we just discussed in 40 minutes, imagine what you could learn in 6 weeks, because we just barely skimmed the surface. So the course runs at this same time frame, Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, for 6 weeks. Sessions are about 90 minutes long. All students get my 230-page monster workbook. If you're in the US, we mail it to you. If you're outside the US, you get the digital copy. And really, I promise you, even if you're an experienced author, you're going to learn something in this course. Here's what we cover week by week. So week 1, we talk more about digging into your audience, figuring out how do you carve out a niche for yourself and what kind of content are you going to share with them. Week 2, we help you with your author website. What should be included there? What is your website strategy? What should it look like? And then how do you leverage social media to reach your audience in a bigger way? Week 3, we talk about the things you need to do to prepare to launch your book. These are more platform building strategies. We talk at greater length about beta readers, building a launch team, all those things. In week 4, we talk about book publicity, your podcast tours, getting on local television and radio, getting featured in newspapers and magazines. And then week 5, remember I said we could spend like 7 hours talking about Amazon? We cover that at great length in week 5, just more detailed tips on how do you really maximize your book's presence on Amazon. And then in week 6, we talk about how to launch your book successfully to really grow and build your audience and hopefully stay in the top 10 of your category. We also have an optional professional certification. So if you're a book coach or a publisher or any kind of publishing professional, or you want to be, this program has been really popular. It's a matter of taking the course, and then we have quizzes following each week's module. You get a certificate, you get the badge for your website, and we list our certified professionals under recommended resources. And we're hearing over and over again, they're getting clients as a result of being on the Nonfiction Authors Association site. So if you're a publishing professional, this is an optional add-on to the course. So when you register for the course, you get the 6 weekly live Zooms with me. Recordings and the slides are shared the same day. So even if you can't attend live, you're able to keep pace with the course. You're going to get the workbook. You're going to get weekly homework assignments. These are optional, but they're a great way for you to implement what you're learning. We have a private Facebook group for students only. And then there's a ton of bonus content. I couldn't even fit it all on this page. There's over 100 pages of templates and reports, including a thorough interview with Mark Paul on how he set up his Amazon ads to sell that best-selling book, the 60,000 copies of The Greatest Gambling Story Ever Told. There's bulk order forms. There's a report on how to sell to libraries, how to grow your email list with lead magnets. There's just so much content here that comes with your course registration. All right, so I would love for you to join me. If any of you here have participated in this course and you want to share in the chat, I would surely appreciate that. But the course starts next week. There's a QR code on the screen if you want to scan that, or just go to bookmarketingmastercourse.com. That will point you to the page on our site. If you need help registering, or you don't like to register online, if you have questions, please feel free to email help@nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. We would be happy to answer any questions you have or help you get registered manually. We do have a member rate of $467. That's 33% off. If you're not a member of the Nonfiction Authors Association, you can actually add membership with course registration and get the member pricing. So we've really loaded it with value. I love teaching this course. It is a highlight for me every year. I only do it live once a year. So if you're thinking about joining, I hope you will. And I'm going to take the slide off now. So snap a photo, go to the site, and let's take your questions. Thank you all so much for that. Let me open up our Q&A and see what you've got for me. All right, here we go. When you send a review copy, what do you include? Great question, Barbara. So it depends on what the purpose is of that review copy you're sending. Let's say you're sending it to a podcaster or a media professional. You want to include some sort of media sheet, like a one-sheet flyer about the book, the date it was published, publishing company name, number of pages, where it can be purchased, how to contact you, your bio. You might include a request in there to contact you to discuss speaking to their audience. You might be contacting college professors. You might say, hey, I'm available to come speak with your class via Zoom, which, by the way, is really fun to do. I've had some of my books picked up by colleges, and it is just so fun to talk to students. So depends on what your goal is with those review copies. I worked with an author who left his tech company executive position and started a consulting business. And his books, he had a plan to send out 50 copies a month to his target customers that he wanted to land as consulting clients. So he started doing that with his target list, with details on the consulting services he offered, and he blew up his business. He had to stop sending them out. He got so busy. So it really just depends on what your goal is with sending out the review copy. Thank you for that question. How do you find lists of podcasts and the contact information for host producer? I love this question, Mike. There are several ways to go about finding podcasts contact information. The most basic way and free way is to go to iTunes or Spotify and search for the podcasts that are reaching your target audience. You might search by keyword, search by theme from your book, search your competing author names and see which podcasts they've appeared on, because you should be on those as well. And then once you find the name of the podcast, you need to go Google it and find their website. And my experience is 9 times out of 10, they have submission guidelines there because they're looking for guests. So they'll tell you exactly how to contact and submit your information to be a guest. Now, there's also podcast directories that you can subscribe to. There's a ton of them. Podmatch comes to mind, Podseeker, I think matchmaker.fm. There's a whole bunch of them. If any of you are using them, feel free to share in the chat the ones that you use and like. And those are fairly inexpensive, like $20 to $50 per month. They will save you a lot of time. So those are really the primary ways to go about finding podcast information. Patty, where else besides Amazon are people getting sales? The world is on fire. I can't in good conscience pay Bezos. Yeah, I get it. To sell books and dump Bezos, keep in mind we can encourage booksellers. So yeah, this is a huge debate for many people that don't want to support Amazon. I completely get it. One of my favorite sites that I will recommend that you link to from your book page is bookshop.org. Bookshop.org should list your book automatically if you're distributed through Ingram. And when a purchase happens there, they route that sale to the local bookstore near where the book is being shipped. So it supports local bookstores. That is so cool. So that is gaining a lot of popularity for those of us who don't want to necessarily support Amazon, and you can route your buyers there. But Goodreads is owned by Amazon. Even if you focus some efforts on promoting there, they link to Amazon. There's certainly barnesandnoble.com, and there's other indie bookstores, Powell's Books, things like that. The sad reality is we believe somewhere around 70% of all book sales are happening on Amazon. So it's more incentive to build your own platform, by the way, because if you're driving people to your website and your book sales page, you can say, hey, buy my book on Bookshop and route it to an indie bookseller. So you can help influence those purchases. But really good question. And I certainly understand. Hey, Matt Zirkle, I remember you. Does anyone have examples of a successful speaker author that is disabled? Traveling is an obstacle. Oh, that is a great question. And yes, Trisha, oh gosh, her name is Trisha. If I write it down, maybe it'll come to me. Gosh darn it. I do. You know what? Send an email to help@nonfictionauthorsassociation.com and I'll get you her information. She's in a wheelchair. She's a speaker on disability. She's fantastic. And I'm so sorry, my brain is not computing her last name right now, but send us an email and we'll get that for you. Kim, how do you start an email list from scratch? And is this appropriate to go back to clients from 15 years ago? Yeah, Kim, these are part of your community of influence, the people that you know that you've worked with who know and like you. You know, I hail from Silicon Valley, and you can bet if I was writing books for tech companies, I would be reaching out to all of my past coworkers from 25 years ago, right? And connecting with them. Plus, they've all gone on to so many other companies that the network I would have would be amazing. So absolutely reach out to your past clients, your past readers, people you went to school with. You'd be amazed how many want to support you. Now, to follow guidelines set out by the FTC, you can't add people to your email list without their permission. So you really need to ask them. You can put it out on your social media, put your lead magnet out there, send an individual email and say, hey, I'm starting this newsletter. Would you like to join? Here's a link to sign up. That's the way to comply with the Federal Trade Commission's CAN Spam Compliance Act is what it's called. But yeah, we all start from scratch. My very first newsletter went out in, I think, 2004 to 8 subscribers. I hadn't even reached out to my family and friends. So we all start somewhere. And since then, we've gone through tens of thousands of subscribers. What do you think about hiring from Fiverr for assistance like social media post creations? I really like Fiverr for non-super important jobs. And I mean, like creating social media header images, doing maybe some light podcast editing, things like that. Please don't use it for your book cover, your logo, things that are important intellectual property. I think that it's wise to invest in professionals, and sometimes we get what we pay for, but Fiverr's great for small, quick things like that. And by the way, for logos, I love 99 Designs. That is a really fun site to get a logo created. Patricia, what about these people like Nigeria, et cetera, that offer to market your book on LinkedIn and Fiverr? I mean, really, there are absolutely qualified service providers in every country in our world. And I absolutely am a fan of hiring overseas. $20 an hour for you from you can be a lot of money to somebody who's living in an impoverished country, yet they have incredible skills to share. So my favorite place to do this kind of hiring is through Upwork. Upwork.com, upwork.com. So this is a massive database of freelancers from all around the world. They can do everything from website design to handling your social media. You can find virtual assistants there. And what's great about Upwork is that they also have user reviews. So provided these people have already been hired by other users like you, they've been rated to show how successful they've been with the job. So it's a great way to vet and make sure that you're hiring legitimate, talented people. I love that site, upwork.com. Brad says, I want to write a memoir. I have several memoirs in mind. I had a narcissistic mother who was a control freak, and I survived. Congratulations, Brad. I get it. I escaped. Who would be my audience for such a memoir? Well, starting with fellow adult children of narcissistic parents, which is, by the way, a huge topic. If you look up narcissistic parents on Amazon, there are a lot of books, which means there's a lot of an audience for that. So I would focus on narcissistic abuse and people who have been in that space. And if you think also, when you're narrowing your target audience, think about where you also want to be in 10 years. So maybe your first memoir is about your narcissistic parent, but your second memoir is about your sibling with addiction. So your bigger net might be navigating family mental health. So I don't like to suggest an audience off the cuff without thinking about the bigger picture, but hopefully my point makes sense there, that you're really targeting an audience with a specific type of content that's going to serve them. And it might be narcissism, but it might even be a broader net than that. I hope that helps. Any recommendations from marketing companies, people that plan on having a podcast, speaking, promoting my book? This is where virtual assistants come in. I'm a huge fan. Really, you could spend a lot of money on book marketing services, and it's very difficult to earn back what you spend on those services, especially if they're thousands and thousands of dollars, which many of them are. So the best value for your dollar, I feel, is in hiring experienced virtual assistants who can help you execute those tasks. Some of them have been trained to work with authors. We're in the process of developing a program to help train virtual assistants because there's such a need. So I think that's your best bet. And again, upwork.com, you can find a lot of folks there. Lucinda, how do you access where you put your 3 categories for your books? Oh, good question, Lucinda. If you've published your books through KDP, you do that, you select and choose your categories in KDP. If you're published with a traditional press or anywhere else, you do that through Author Central. So you claim your book, you create an Author Central account, it's free. You claim your book, and they have a process under the contact section where you can request your categories. Jenna, the Marketing Master Course, could I send an assistant? Of course, Jenna, I encourage you to send an assistant to the course. We've absolutely had people do that, and that's perfectly fine with us. Liz, in building a platform, is an email to intro self and offer a lead magnet considered spam? How do you avoid that designation of your intro email? So Spam Compliance Act prohibits us from sending mass commercial emails unless we have some sort of relationship with the recipients. So the way around that is to send one email at a time to the people that you know and ask them if they would like to subscribe. You can also buy email lists. I'm not a huge fan of this strategy, but if you have a really specific audience and it's possible to purchase an email list for that audience, the way that works is you're allowed to do one send and invite them to voluntarily subscribe by giving them a lead magnet of some sort. Those lists, whether for email or physical mailing lists, dataaxle.com is a great source for those. Matt, do you think the certification for the classes would be beneficial for someone that is just writing the book, speaking, etc.? I was thinking of having that cert might help in getting more speaking engagements, looking more professional. Definitely the certification comes with some added credibility, especially if you're targeting anybody in the publishing realm. There are no programs like this. Nobody is really setting the standards in the publishing industry, which is why we created the certification. I couldn't confidently recommend marketing professionals because I didn't know what strategies they were following, or if they were convincing people that those Amazon bestseller campaigns were great and charging them $3,000 to do it. We chose to set some standards for the industry through the marketing certification. We have a publishing certification. We have a publicity certification. If you think it would influence the people that you're targeting for your business, then yeah, absolutely. But I think it really is going to depend on the market you're reaching. Eileen, I worked with a great graphic designer on Upwork for our queensofcode.com website. You can define your task and ask creators to bid for the work. Yes, absolutely. Upwork's so great. I'm glad you had a good experience. Tim, how to get my self-published reviewed? I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you want to elaborate, please do. In the meantime, we're almost at the top of the hour. I'm going to put in the chat the link, bookmarketingmastercourse.com. I would really love to see many of you there. I am going to share the recording and the slides to this event. I sincerely hope you learned some new tips today. You found some value in spending your time with me today. If you put your questions in chat, I'm not seeing them because it is buried in there, but I hope this was helpful. I look forward to reading through the chat after we're done here. And I just thank you all so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for attending this webinar by the Nonfiction Authors Association. Since 2010, we have helped thousands of writers learn to write, publish, and promote books that make a difference in the world. If you need support navigating the complexities of the publishing industry and want to reach your author goals faster, you can learn about membership benefits, courses, and additional resources by visiting nonfictionauthorsassociation.com.